Today about life in dead places. Just the title of that was enough to shout on. I worked on that for 3 days. Life in dead places. Mark chapter 5. If you say I got it. You ready to go to work?
Yes.
Starting in verse 1, we'll go through verse 15 and we'll look at some more around this story. Excuse me. So they went across the lake to the region of the Gadarenes. When Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an evil spirit came from the tombs to meet him. This man lived in the tombs and no one could bind him anymore, not even with chains. For he had often been chained hand and foot, but he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and in the hills he would cry out and cut himself with stones. When he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and fell on his knees in front of him. He shouted at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? Swear to God that you won't torture me." For Jesus had said to him, "Come out of this man, you evil spirit." Then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "My name is Legion," he replied, "for we are many." And he begged Jesus again and again not to send him out of the area. A large herd of pigs was feeding on the nearby hillside. The demons begged Jesus, "Send us among the pigs, allow us to go into them." He gave them permission, and the evil spirits came out and went into the pigs. The herd, about 2,000 in number, rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. Those tending the pigs ran off and reported this to the town and the countryside, and the people went out to see what had happened. When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons sitting there, dressed and in his right frame of mind, and they were afraid. Now, I'm fixing to give you a little shocker here. I actually like the King James and New King James of verse 6. Like, I know. Those know I don't do King James. But I do actually like the King James, New King James of verse 6. Let me tell you why. Because it says that the man ran to him and worshipped. Like, that's some powerful stuff. Like, a man bound by demons recognized Jesus not as a man, but as God, and ran to him and fell on his face and began to worship him. This man bound by demons also said in verse 7, he said, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God?" But see, we're all in our right frame of mind this morning, and we have a problem confessing Jesus. Here's this man, bound by demons, not in his right frame of mind, but when he sees Jesus, he recognizes Jesus and falls on his face, confesses Jesus, and worships him. When's the last time you fell on your face and confessed Jesus as Son of the Most High God? You know, in order to confess that, in order to confess Jesus, you must have something higher than yourself. Now, you will confess Jesus as Son of the Most High God when you hold him in high regard. I'm afraid that many of us, we hold ourselves in higher regard than we do Jesus. You know, worshiping is acknowledging that there's a being above you. You know, you don't have to worship yourself all the time. Amen? Amen. You don't have to hold yourself so high all the time. I mean, give God a little bit. I mean, can God just get a little bit? Can he get a little bit of your worship? Can he get a little bit of your time? You know, because the presence of Jesus demands worship. I mean, even in the midst of this man being taken over by demons, when the presence of Jesus comes into your life, you will worship. And this man was bound by everything in life. Everything that you could ever think of, this man was bound by it in life. But when he got in the presence of Jesus, he fell on his face, he confessed Jesus as Lord, and then he worshiped. You know what's so crazy about this story is that no one cared about this dude. So this dude lived in a cemetery. Verse 3 says that he lived amongst the tombs. He was still alive, but in a dead place. I wonder this morning how many of us that describes. You're alive, but in a dead place. Who am I talking to this morning? You're alive, but in a dead place. And what's so unique about this guy is that the only time somebody would come to check on him would be to make sure he was still bound with chains. See, there's somebody in here this morning that you've got that person in your life, or you've got people in your life that the only time they come around you is to make sure that you're still bound. They come around every once in a while. But it's not to build you up. It's not to acknowledge you. It's to make sure the chains are still on you. Look at verse 4 again, and we'll walk through this story. It said, for he had often been chained hand and foot, but he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet, and no one was strong enough to subdue him. That verse said that he's often chained hand and feet. He wasn't doing it to himself. He wasn't chaining himself up. So what would happen is somebody would come around on a regular basis to make sure that he was still bound. Can anybody relate to that? Because every time you start to get ahead of life, every time things start going good for you, here they come with new chains. Here that person comes with new drama. Here that person comes with new problems. And never give you a lick of freedom in your life. You know the person I'm talking about. That no matter what's going on, no matter how good things might be going for you, this person or these people bring negativity on you. And you can be having a great day. You know what I'm talking about. And then here they come. And it's gone. Now let me give you a little backstory about this guy, or about this story. In Mark 3, the disciples began to follow Jesus, and crowds and crowds and crowds were coming, and they were following Jesus, and the crowds were getting bigger, and they were getting bigger, and they were getting bigger. And then Jesus decides, well, I need 12 guys. So he handpicks 12 disciples, and they're going to be his apostles, they're going to be his disciples. But then the crowds get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then in Mark chapter 4, it says that the crowds were pressing onto Jesus so much. And when he was trying to teach them, they were like so much pressure. They was pressing on Jesus so much that he got in a boat to get away from the crowd in order to teach them. Now, he could have stood on the water and taught them from the water, but then he had to heal the people who had a heart attack. Like 3 people got that. And then when he finished this sermon, that all these people were there, he tells the disciples, he said, hey, let's get in the boat. We're going to go to the other side. We got some ministry work we're going to do over there. Now, that's the story where the winds and the waves come, and the disciples are panicking, and they're crying, and they're sucking their thumb, and they think that they're going to die. Y'all know that story? If you don't know that story, cheat and just look back just before chapter 5 of Mark, then you see the story. So, but the storm came on them. Now, I've always wondered this. Now, when Jesus was in the boat preaching and teaching, and he was out on the water, because the crowd was so much, why a storm didn't come then? Why is it that the storm didn't come until Jesus said, hey, let's get in the boat because there's one man over there we got to go see? Why is it that that's when the storm came? That when Jesus decided, we're going to the other side. I don't want you to miss this, because this one man had something that a crowd did not have. And the devil was going to prevent that one man from ever encountering Jesus. The story about the storm says that the boat began to break apart. So the storm came as Jesus was trying to go do ministry somewhere else to reach one man. Now, this man, although bound by a bunch of demons, had something that the crowd did not. And the devil was going to prevent that. Because this one man was about to confess Jesus. You see, the crowd, they was there because they wanted something from Jesus. But this one man, all he wanted was Jesus. And see, when you start getting serious in your life, and you say, you know what, this is about Jesus and not about anything else, you better hold on, because there's a storm coming. So Jesus closes out this church service that he's having. He dismisses the crowd, and he says, let's go to the other side. Now, the disciples have never seen a big following like this before. They've never seen this many people show up at a church service. So they're pretty excited. Like, there was a lot of people there. There was so many people that it says that Jesus had to get in a boat to get away from the people so he could teach. So that's a big crowd. The very first church service ever is full of people. Man, that would be awesome, wouldn't it? So as they're in the boat, they're talking back and forth, and they're dialoguing, and Jesus is asleep, so there's no telling what they're talking about. And James says to Peter, hey man, that sure was a big crowd we just left. How many people you think going to be at the next one? Peter said, oh, probably about 3,000. Didn't know y'all get that, did you? Y'all ever read Acts chapter 2? And Peter preached, and 3,000 people got saved. So y'all will read that in about another month. You'll be like, oh, that's funny. Now I know what you're talking about. But just imagine for a moment the excitement of the disciples. And they just left the masses of people. Huge number of people. So this thing can only get bigger, right? Like the first church service was packed. It's just going to get bigger. And as they get closer to the shore, Peter's looking. They didn't endure the storm. So, a storm coming, there's going to have to be a whole lot of people. Peter looking, and he don't see nobody. And then he starts talking to Jesus still asleep. So he starts talking to the disciples and say, man, I don't see nobody. You think we're on the right track? And then he says, I know what it was. I know what, because Peter was a fisherman, so he knew what it was. He said, I know what it was. It was that storm. That storm threw us off. That storm, it threw us off course. So that's what it was. And then James said, they probably coming, man. They probably coming. They're on Haitian time. Now, if you've ever been to Haiti, and I've had the opportunity to go a couple times, and they have their own time over there. So if you tell them church starts at 5, you don't need to show up till about 7:30 or 8. And you think I'm kidding, go to Haiti. So James said, hey man, they're probably on Haitian time. And then Philip, we got to include Philip. He whispers to Thomas, and he says, hey man, do you think Jesus knew what he was talking about? And Thomas said, I doubt it. Y'all didn't get that either, did you? And as they're about to dock, they begin to notice that the marina looks like a cemetery. I see it's at this point Judas starts screaming, turn the boat around, turn the boat, come on man, this ain't funny, I ain't playing, turn the boat around. See, me and Judas would have got along great because I ain't trying to go to no cemeteries. And so Judas panics, he starts screaming, telling them, turn the boat around, turn the boat around. And they notice that this man has come walking through the cemetery. Now this story only gets better. Because Luke said, when he wrote about the story, Luke said that the man was naked. How would you like a crazy naked man coming at you? Have you ever seen that movie, True Grit? Everybody seen True Grit. You're not American if you haven't seen True Grit. Do you remember that there was this guy on there that was crazy and they called him Chicken Man? Y'all remember Chicken Man? No? Now can you imagine being one of these disciples and you're on your first ever mission trip? You're supposed to be preaching to the masses. You're supposed to be doing great things, healing people, feeding people. Like that, that's what you signed up for. That's why you follow Jesus, is because you knew this is fixing to be a big thing, and this thing was fixing to be huge. But then you look up and you see a naked crazy man clucking like a chicken, and he's coming through the cemetery and he's heading your way. So you grab Judas by the hand and you both start crying and screaming for your mama, talking about, I just want to go home. Normal people don't go to a cemetery to do evangelism. Why? They already dead. I mean, what are you going to do for them people? But Jesus left this huge crowd, went to the other side of the lake, to the cemetery, to reach one person. Because Jesus knew that there was still a life in a dead place. That was your opportunity to say amen. Jesus and his disciples leave this huge crowd, this successful story that we read in Mark 3 and 4. Very successful story of ministry. They leave this crowd, they cross the lake, they endure such a violent storm that the disciples thought they were going to die, only to dock at a cemetery and encounter a crazy naked man. Why? Why did they do that? For one soul. What are you willing to do for one soul? What are we willing to encounter as a church for one soul? Jesus will cross barriers for you. I want you to know that. And that's important for you to know because Jesus, who is our high priest, crossed over the Levitical law in order to go to a cemetery for one guy. Because in Leviticus chapter 21, it gives all the details about what the high priest is not supposed to do and what he's supposed to do and how he's supposed to serve. And then in verse 11 of Leviticus 21, it says that the high priest cannot be around dead bodies. So Jesus leads these people to a cemetery which is full of dead bodies for one guy because Jesus knew that there was still life in that one person in that cemetery. Jesus went across barriers to save one soul and release him from the bondage that had been holding him down. Jesus will release you from the bondage that you're living in. And Jesus will bring you out of the dead situation that you're in. Amen. Let's look at a little bit more of this. Look at verses 8 through 13. We'll knock a chunk of it out real quick. For Jesus had said to him, "Come out of this man, you evil spirit." Then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "My name is Legion," he replied, "for we are many." And he begged Jesus again and again not to send him out of the area. A large herd of pigs was feeding on the nearby hillside. The demons begged Jesus, "Send us out of the pigs, allow us to go into them." He gave them permission, and the evil spirit came out and went into the pigs. The herd, about 2,000 in number, rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. There was so much pressure, so much bondage on this man that 2,000 pigs couldn't handle what one guy had been dealing with his whole life. There was so much pressure on these pigs that the only thing they could do to relieve the pressure was to commit suicide. Now, if you was to come to me and say, "Hey man, 2,000 pigs drowned today," my response would be, "That was perfectly good bacon." Now, if you want to make the Livestock Association mad at you, tell them that story. But here's this man. He has so much on him, and he's finally released of this bondage. Now, I want you, just to remind you, and look at it again, at what his daily activities consisted of. Look at verse 5. It said, night and day, among the tombs in the hills, he would cry out and cut himself with stones. Some of us this morning are trapped by our circumstances, and night and day we cry out. Oh, you can put on a smile for an hour on Sunday mornings. Come 12:30, you're back in the cemetery. You're back in dead places in your life. Because that's normal to you. But man, I'm telling you, Jesus wants to free you of that bondage. Jesus wants to free you from what it is that you're struggling with this morning. You know, and we begin to think in our mind that, man, this is all there is to life. This is it. This is what I got to look forward to. So living in a cemetery becomes acceptable to you. Living in a dead place becomes normal to you. And for some of us this morning, we would rather be around dead things. Some of you this morning, you're stuck in tombs and you don't even know it. So let me show you what you need to do. We're going to take some advice from a crazy naked man. Look at verse 6. It said, when he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and fell on his knees in front of him. And, you know, in the King James says he fell and he worshiped him. But what I want you to get is this. He ran to Jesus. Now, how did this guy know who Jesus was? Jesus is fresh in ministry. They're coming off their first church service. Word didn't get around that quick. Like, this guy ain't never seen Jesus before. This guy ain't never even heard of Jesus before. How did this guy know who Jesus was? Something inside of him said, whoever that is in that boat has the power to free me from this bondage I'm in, has the power to take these chains off of me. And then that thing that was inside of him, we know it to be demons, but that thing that was inside of him also recognized that that was Jesus, and that I got to get out of this man. Because Jesus is fixing to do something crazy. I want you to know today that no matter what you're going through in life and no matter where you're at in life, Jesus will cross over barriers. He will cross over lakes. He will leave crowds. He will endure storms just for you.
Amen.
Look at verses 14 and 15 again. Because there's something powerful finna come out of this. Those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and countryside. And the people went out to see what had happened. There's always some nosy folks somewhere in there. When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons, sitting there dressed in his right frame or his right mind. And they were afraid. Now when I read verse 15, I can't help but wonder, what were they afraid of? Were they not afraid of him when he was naked and acting crazy and barking at the moon like Ozzy Osbourne? Don't act like you don't know this song. Y'all sitting there like, I don't even know who Ozzy Osbourne is. Yeah, you do. Why were they afraid of him now when he was actually wearing clothes and could talk normally? When he could carry on a conversation? What is it about him now that they were afraid of? Don't miss this because I'm fixing to tell you. For years they had control over this man. They kept him chained up. They kept him in bondage because of his condition. But now he's met the Savior, and now he is free, and he's no longer a slave to anyone. They were afraid of him because they could no longer control him. I believe there's somebody in here today that if you got free, if you really got free, you start scaring some folks. That if you break out of that bondage, if you let Jesus break you out of that bondage that you're in, and you start letting Jesus control your life, other people can't. You see, these people, they liked this man better when he was in chains. But now he's free. Man, you got to let Jesus break your chains today. Jesus said in John 8:36, so if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. See, a lot of these chains that we got in our life, this bondage we got is self-inflicted. And Jesus, he's trying. Man, he's trying. He's trying. He's crossing barriers for you. He's crossing over Levitical law for you. He's your high priest, and he's going against everything that the law says he ought to do for you. But you know what you keep doing? Let me put these chains back on. Yeah, I went to church today. It was good. Church was good. I was free there for about an hour, but when I get out of here about 12:30, let me get these hooked. Go. Let me get back in that dead place I've been in my whole life. Let me tell you something. I'm going to get ready to close here in just a second. God has done his part in your life. Now it's time for you to do your part. Jesus left a crowd. He endured a storm to free you from the bondage that you're living in. What are you going to do for him? Look at verse 20 and then we'll be done. So the man went away and began to tell the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him. And all the people were amazed. He began to tell how much Jesus had done for him. Everybody in here, you have a testimony. I don't care where you're at in life. I don't care if you've strayed from the Lord right now. I don't care if this is as close as you've ever walked with Jesus. You got a testimony. Jesus freed you. He freed you. He did His part. What are you going to do for Him? Think about that. He left a crowd. He left a crowd. Got in a boat ride, endured a storm, had to deal with some idiot disciples, docked at a cemetery for one man. Now, if I was to put up a sign-up sheet on the wall back there and say, hey, we're fixing to take a mission trip. How long is it going to last, preacher? 1 day. How many people are going to reach, preacher? 1. What's the conditions? He's going to be naked. I would probably be going by myself. And I'm just being honest. Because ain't nobody trying to sign up for that. You think the disciples signed up for that? Man, they just got done witnessing this huge crowd as Jesus preached. And Jesus said, hey, there's a soul over there. And He desires something this crowd does not. And what's so amazing to me is that this guy, possessed by demons, not just one, this is a legion, that's a lot. That's not 2, that's not 3, that's a lot. Google it. When he saw Jesus, had never even seen Jesus before, but he knew that guy had something. He ran, fell on his face, confessed Jesus as Son of the Most High God, and worshipped. Jesus has done His part in your life. What are you going to do for Him? I'm going to ask our musicians to come back, and I'm going to pray for us. If you would, go ahead and bow your head and close your eyes. Where are you at today? Where are you at? Are you in a dead place? You lived in that cemetery today? Only you can change the condition that you're living in. And yeah, you can put on your Sunday best and put on a smile, and you can come in here and you can act like everything's all right. But you and God know it's not. Here in a moment, we're going to give you an opportunity to come to this altar and pray. You know what? Nobody's going to mind your business. Nobody's going to bother you. Because what you got going on is between you and the Lord. Not between you and the preacher. Not between you and the musicians. Not between you and the people sitting around you. It's between you and Jesus. And I want you to know this morning that whatever it is that has you chained up and has you in bondage, Jesus has the key to those chains. And not just to take them off for you to put them back on again when you leave here, but for Him to take them off and for Him to dispose of that bondage and for Him to dispose of those chains. Jesus has done His part in your life. What are you going to do? Father, you're good to us. You freed us. And as the scripture said, when the Son sets you free, you're free indeed. And God, we can't comprehend that. We have trouble with that. God, help us. Help us be like that demon-possessed man that when he saw Jesus, he ran. Not worried about what everybody else was thinking. He didn't care what the disciples thought. He didn't care what the town people thought. But he was willing to leave that dead place for life. I'm going to ask you to stand as we sing. This altar is open.